Good afternoon, everyone, and hope this meets us doing well. I'm coming up this afternoon to give us some highlight on the direction that we have to take as far as the course phenomenology is concerned. I intend that this voice note be snappy so that it cause us to get exactly the course description, to get the objective of our study, to get the content, and then the expected outcome. It is important that we begin with this because these preliminaries will help us to understand exactly what phenomenology is about, so that at our individual reading and study, we can know what to be going after. So the first thing I would like to say is in relation to the course description, and I am drawing this from the logical investigation. Logical investigation is a work of Edmund Husserl that was published in 1900. Logical investigation, 1900, of course, is the 20th century. And in this work, Husserl announces the objective of phenomenology. He makes a simple announcement of what phenomenology is all about, and he describes it as a philosophy that calls for the return to things in themselves. So quite often in our encounter, you will hear me talk about the mantra in phenomenology. The mantra in phenomenology will be the call for the return to things in themselves. Call for the return to things in themselves. And as I indicated, you can find this in logical investigation. That's the work of Edmund Husserl, published in the 20th century. So by asking us to return to the things themselves, Husserl was like challenging us to get into a radically new way of doing philosophy. That's a radical breakaway from the old mentality or the old approach of doing philosophy to the new approach of doing philosophy. And it is that of letting things, reality, to speak to us as it is, that of allowing reality, allowing things to manifest themselves to us as they are, that of allowing, that of not imposing our way, our approach into things. Sometimes I prefer to call it as the tyranny of human beings over reality. That's by dictating on reality, by dictating their perceptions, their views, their cultures, their approaches on reality, instead of allowing reality to manifest itself to us humans as it is. It is like maybe arguing that Husserl was of the point of view that we should allow things to talk to us instead of dictating our way onto the things. So basically, whether we are studying phenomenology as per Edmund Husserl, whether we are looking at phenomenology from the dimension of Martin Heidegger, whether we are looking at phenomenology from the perspective of Maurice Merleau-Ponty, from Jean-Paul Sartre, from Emmanuel Levinas, from Gadamer, we shall have something that keeps us united as phenomenologists, maybe from the different approaches which I've mentioned, the different phenomenologies I've mentioned above, and that is going to be the call for the return to things in themselves. So it is very, very important, maybe a phrase that we can use to describe this course is the emphasis on the return to things in themselves. And as I maintained already, that is from the logical investigations of Edmund Husserl. So if that's a look at the objective of our program, then I beg your pardon, if that's a look at the course description, then we can proceed to look at the objective of the course. And This course does not intend, let me use the negative way, by first of all telling us what we don't intend to do. We don't intend in this program to have all the details about phenomenology. We don't intend in this program to get to study all the different phenomenologies, for the simple reason that such a project is impossible. It's not just feasible. So the program is just an introduction to the complex universe of phenomenology. Is an introduction, an initiation into that. And let me just explain to us why we call it complex. It is complex because, as Paul Ricoeur has maintained, that phenomenology after Husserl is just nothing but the deviations from Husserl. So it is a complex universe of phenomenology because we don't have one approach to phenomenology. It is like arguing that the different phenomenologists have different approaches, but then there is something that makes them united. And that which makes them united is, if you go back to the course description, as I maintained already, you will see that genuine attempt or approach to return to things in themselves, whatever the level that the different phenomenologists are considering. And again, you may like to look at the book which I shared already in the forum by Demotte Moran, that's Introduction to Phenomenology. You will see that from Husserl, we have different phenomenologists like Martin Heidegger, we have Emmanuel Levinas, we have Hannah Arendt, we have Jean-Paul Sartre, we have Maurice Merleau-Ponty, we have Derrida, we have Gadamer, just to mention but these different phenomenologies give different species, give different approaches to phenomenology. That is in justification to the claim by Paul Ricoeur that phenomenology after Husserl is nothing but deviations from Husserl. So when we come to that, it's important that we look at the course content, and the course content is shared already. If you look at the course outline, which I shared already, you will see exactly what we're going to be doing. One of the reasons why it is important for us to look at this course outline because it is going to help us to know what to be looking for, to know what to study. It is going to direct our reading so that we don't go maybe reading things that are not important. So if you look at the program, we're going to get, as far as the course content is concerned, we're literally just going to divide the course into 4 parts. The first part is going to be a general introduction to phenomenology, general introduction. At the moment, what I'm doing is not the first part of our lecture, but a kind of laying some preliminaries which we need to take into consideration in order to be able to understand the direction that we're taking. So the first part will be general introduction, as I've maintained, and under that we shall try to define phenomenology, and we shall do that under a series of topics. The first one shall be, we shall look at phenomenology as a discipline in philosophy. Then after that, we shall consider phenomenology as a philosophical movement. From there, we shall look at the journey from phenomena to phenomenology, because phenomenology developed from the study of phenomena, and Husserl transformed the study of phenomena to phenomenology. We're going to see that. And then after that, we're going to look at the definition of phenomenology. Of course, there are, as I maintained already, different perspectives. That's why we consider phenomenology as the study of the complex universe of phenomenology, because of the different perspectives and approaches that we have on phenomenology. And then after, we shall look at the distinction between phenomenology, ontology, epistemology, logic, and ethics. And this is important because there are four core branches of philosophy. You either have maybe philosophers under ontology, you have philosophers of epistemology, you have philosophers of logic, and then ethics. So we'll try to see the relationship between phenomenology and ontology, phenomenology and epistemology, and then logic and ethics. And I want to challenge us as well to begin to at our personal level now to look at some of these areas of convergence between ontology, epistemology, logic, ethics on the one hand, and phenomenology on the other hand. And then as well, we look at areas of divergence between ontology, epistemology, logic, and ethics, and phenomenology on the other hand. So that's what we're going to do under the general introduction to phenomenology. Then when we are done with that, we shall look at the background to Edmund Husserl's phenomenology. And this is important because Husserl is the father of phenomenology, as at least from the 20th century. He stands at the forefront of phenomenology. And before that, we shall look at the background. Background here will mean trying to understand the various factors that motivated Husserl, the various factors that contributed to the development of the phenomenology from the dimension or from the perspective of Husserl. And there are three of those aspects which we're going to take into consideration. The first one, will look at the place of the 17th century. And we shall be asking a question: how did the 17th century contribute to the development of phenomenology? Then we shall look after the 17th century, we shall look at the role of Frank Brentano. How did Frank Brentano, because Husserl says that phenomenology must honor Brentano as one of those apostles, or one of those prophets, if you want me to use the word of phenomenology. So we shall look at the role of Frank Brentano in the development of phenomenology, how the contentions of Brentano helped Husserl to develop phenomenology. Then away from that, we shall look at the contributions of René Descartes. René Descartes is one of the authors and one of the philosophers acknowledged by Husserl as having laid a foundation to the development of phenomenology. We shall look at the aspects in Cartesian philosophy. By Cartesian, I'm referring to René Descartes' philosophy. We shall look at those aspects in his philosophy that are relevant in phenomenology. Then away from that, the third aspect of the program will be on Husserl's phenomenology. So when we look at the background to his phenomenology in point number 2, the third, we shall look at his phenomenology per se. So we get to understand his own idea of phenomenology, and that will be accompanied by studying the phenomenological method. So it's important because as I maintained already in the course description, Husserl advocated for the return to things in themselves. And we shall look at that clearly to see exactly what he meant by that, return to things in themselves. And under the method which we are referring to as the phenomenological method, we shall look at how can we go back to the things in themselves. First, we'll ask the question: is it possible for us to know things as they are? And maybe without going far, we can ask: is it possible for us, maybe as members of this class now, to know ourselves as we are, to know each other as he is? Is it possible? Husserl gives us a method that we can be able to apply the method to be able to get into the heart of reality, to be able to get into knowledge of reality as that reality is. And then the last point we shall consider the phenomenology post Husserl. We shall look at phenomenology after Husserl, and what we intend to do will be to try to see the different approaches the divergent opinions of phenomenology after Husserl. Remember that in the course of considering the objective of the course, I did make mention of Paul Ricoeur as saying that phenomenology is nothing but deviations from Husserl. So I think it's important for us to have an eye on phenomenology post Husserl. So at least we can look at his immediate follower like Heidegger, and perhaps be able to look at the phenomenology of ontology. The choice of Heidegger here is because Heidegger is or was a student of Husserl, and would like to see his own idea about phenomenology after his master Edmund Husserl. That's why Heidegger is understood here as advocating for the phenomenology of ontology. The phenomenology of ontology, we're going to see that, which is already like a deviation from Husserl's approach or Husserl's understanding of phenomenology. Then the other philosopher that we're going to study, or phenomenologists we're going to look at the level of the lecture, is Emmanuel Levinas and the phenomenology of alterity. Levinas did not base his argument on ontology as Heidegger did. He didn't base his argument on consciousness as Husserl did, but he took phenomenology from consciousness, he took it away from ontology and based it on ethics. He gave it an ethical dimension. So that is basically what we're going to be able to do in class as per the content of our program. Because with that, we're going to come to the end of the program from that description of the course content. Please, if you are not versed with this, you can come back to the course outline, which I shared already in the group. You'll be able to see what I've just explained. It's important that we follow from there, because that is going to govern our study. That is going to give us some direction, to give us a kind of direction to take, to be able to understand that. So when that is said and done, I come to what we are referring to as the course outcome. The course outcome. Course outcome here is, what are we expecting by course outcome? We're asking the question, what are we expecting from ourselves at the end of the program? If our course objective is getting introduced into the complex universe of phenomenology, or as Husserl calls it, the return to things in themselves. So what do we expect? After going through the course content, as I've indicated, what are we expecting from ourselves? So the students are expected to be in possession of, to provide substantive knowledge of the different philosophers in phenomenology. So that's the course outcome. That at the end of the program, we should be able to have substantive knowledge of the different philosophers in phenomenology. If Paul Ricoeur is right in saying that phenomenology is nothing but deviations from Husserl, then we have as expectation to be able to manifest some knowledge about phenomenology, at least starting from Husserl, and then the other different philosophers in phenomenology. And given the nature of the program, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do to be able to get to these areas which we have set for ourselves. At the level of the class, I will be able to give you orientation on 3 phenomenologies, at least as you can see from the course outline. I'll be able to talk about Edmund Husserl, who is the founding father of phenomenology. I'll be able to talk about Heidegger, and then Emmanuel Levinas. Then in the book which I gave to us at the level of the class, at the level of the forum, I beg your pardon, you will see the other phenomenologies there. You will see that clearly. And I would like that as per the assignments that we have to do, we start by identifying. The book is on the forum, please. We'll be able to find it there. we start by identifying the ones that we can work. Please, we can do the identification in the forum so that some other person is not, two persons are not working on the same author. So look at introduction to phenomenology, look at the different phenomenologies that have been discussed there, and see whether you identify one. Then from there you try to study his own approach to phenomenology. Then that is going to serve as our assignment, because we'll be able to do that and then provide a write-up. For instance, if I take call it Gadamer, for instance, that's phenomenology in relation to hermeneutics. So I'll be able to present the contentions of Gadamer, and then for the assignment that we're giving. So the others are going to do the same. So please, when you pick, you identify in the forum so that we don't have two persons working on the same topic. And I would like to suggest that we can do the write-up. The write-up can be done in five pages, so that at least it will serve as an assignment that we are working on as we are starting with the program, so that as we are going ahead to lay the foundation on what phenomenology is all about, we are also working, that's researching in the other aspects which I have mentioned. So if you pick, please don't forget to come to the forum and indicate. For instance, if I am Kizito Liven, I pick let's say the phenomenology of the public sphere by Hannah Arendt, I simply just come to the forum and I indicate so that the others know that this is what I have done. So we'll do a write-up in 5 pages as we are beginning. I think we shall be having more details on this, but it was important that we start by laying this preliminary so that we know exactly the direction that we are taking. So this voice note, this audio here has as objective to clarify the course description, to give us information on the course objective, to be able to talk about the course content to us, and then the expected outcome after going through the defined objectives. And last but not the least, to assign us, so that as we are scheduling and working on the understanding of phenomenology, we are also doing some little assignment, and we can get the information, as I maintained already, from the introduction to phenomenology by Demotte Moran. Thank you very much for your attention. Please, if there is something that you have not understood, something that you are finding it difficult to understand, please don't hesitate to get back to me. The moment we begin with the program, I will try as much as possible to see whether we can go by the videos, so that at least I'll be able to project some slides and do some explanations and see whether that can be lighter for us. Thank you very much and wish you the best.